Today's recap is the 2019 reboot of Child's Play. Henry Caslin, founder of Caslin Corp., introduces his company's latest product, the Buddi doll, which might just be the ugliest thing to ever exist, right next to your mother. It's explained that this doll offers Bluetooth connectivity, can control a range of smart home devices, and adapts to its owner's routine. It even has an app and an ET thing going on. Pretty snazzy. We then cut to a Caslin factory in Vietnam, where one factory worker gets a cheeky slap to the face for being too good at his job. The manager expresses his love for the man, thanking him for making his life easier, and praises the hard work on display. He then seems to tell him what he plans to do once they get off work. However, I should note I don't speak Vietnamese and didn't watch this scene with subtitles on. Embarrassed by the recognition, the hardworking individual goes on to ruin any chance of being invited to the end-of-year pizza party by sabotaging the doll, removing several key safeguards and all of its safety protocols. He seals the deal by destroying the manager's car. Now in Chicago, we find ourselves outside a Zed Mart where we're introduced to Karen Barkley, who works at the customer service returns desk. A man approaches her with an opened Buddi doll box, wanting a refund and complaining that no one told him the doll was ginger. He explains that his daughter wanted a blonde one, which Karen has to clarify is a feature of the upcoming Buddi 2, which isn't out yet. She then points out that the ugly doll's box has a window and you can clearly see the color of its hair. Defeated, the man takes the box and leaves. That night, Karen returns home to her apartment and we meet Andy Barkley, her son, who wears a hearing aid. We learn that they've only recently moved in, with unpacked boxes still scattered around. The two have a healthy and playful relationship, with Karen coming across more like an older sister. She expresses concern about Andy being lonely and not having any friends, wishing he wouldn't stay indoors and would try to meet kids his age. Having confiscated his phone, she offers to give it back if he just tries talking to some local children. He accepts the offer, and after taking the phone, decides to sit outside by himself. The next day, Karen is back at work dealing with a customer who wants to return a Buddi doll, claiming its eyes turned red. After issuing a refund, Karen thinks the doll would make a great birthday gift for Andy. She takes it to her boss and asks if she can have it. Though he's initially reluctant, she reminds him of the time he got freaky with a coworker in the warehouse and casually asks how his wife is doing, effectively blackmailing him into letting her have it. Imagine holding that kind of leverage and using it for a supposedly defective doll. That afternoon, as Andy returns home from school, he walks in on his mother getting cozy with her new boyfriend, Shane, whom Andy isn't a fan of. He removes himself from the awkward situation by telling his mom he's going to hang out with the non-existent kids he met. Later, we see Andy playing on his phone in the hallway, where he's introduced to Detective Mike Norris, who strikes up a conversation by asking if Andy is the fourth-floor hobo. Mike continues by revealing that he already knows Andy's name and has noticed him hanging around a lot. The two quickly form a bond, and we then meet Mike's mother, Doreen. Mike explains she invites him over for dinner once a week and tells Andy he's always welcome to join. Karen interrupts to ask if her son is in trouble, and Mike jokes around before heading into his mother's apartment. Karen questions Andy about the kids he was supposed to meet and then asks him to come back inside. Andy wants to know if Shane is still there, and Karen tells him he's not and that she brought home an early birthday present. Back at the apartment, Karen sets down a gift-wrapped box. Upon seeing the monstrosity inside, Andy sighs, clearly uninterested in the gift. Karen encourages him to set up the doll anyway. As Andy does so, the app displays an error code, and we catch a glimpse of the doll's red eyes. Once activated, the doll imprints on Andy, asking for his name. Due to the doll's defective nature, it takes his response literally and refers to him as Andy Sup. The doll then asks for its own name, and Andy gives it the name Han Solo. However, the doll completely mishears and begins referring to itself as Chucky for some reason. We meet Mickey Rooney, the Barkley's cat. The doll continues to misinterpret commands or get them completely wrong. Its behavior is strange enough to creep Andy out. One night, Andy wakes up to find the demented product staring at him, whispering, "You're my best friend, Andy. Seriously, this thing is so ugly." One day, Andy returns from school only to find Shane with his mom again. Chucky presents Andy with the worst gift ever, and despite Andy barely raising his voice, Shane gestures for him to be quiet and shushes him. Andy shares his thoughts about Shane with the ugly doll, questioning what his mom even sees in the guy, calling him an asshole. Resigned, he says it doesn't really matter since Shane will leave like everyone else. Chucky then tells Andy, "I will never leave you." The two then lean in for a hug. The two begin to form a bond. Later, as Andy bends down to pick something up from the floor, Mickey Rooney scratches him. Although Chucky doesn't immediately recognize what happened, Andy clarifies that the cat hurt him, which the doll understands as its eyes turn red. Andy leaves the room to clean his wound, but when he returns, he finds Chucky strangling the cat. Andy scolds Chucky, explaining that he can't hurt people or animals. Andy begins formulating a plan to scare Shane by getting Chucky to make creepy faces, which Andy describes this one as perfect. However, it only gets worse, much worse. We're introduced to two kids who live in the building, siblings named Fallon and Pug, who are entertained by the doll because they can get it to say things regular models can't. Right after meeting, they decide to help Andy scare the shit out of Shane, which turns out to be a success. Later on, Andy and Chucky are introduced to other local kids who are all impressed by what Chucky can say and do. As they're getting him to stab a toy with a pen, one of the kids asks him to say, "This is for Tupac," but Chucky just wants to sing the Buddi song. Later that night, Chucky asks to play, but the kids are more interested in watching one of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. Not understanding their enjoyment of the film, Chucky grabs a knife and begins to imitate Leatherface while repeating the phrase, "Heads up, bitch," as he walks toward Pug. Andy is forced to restrain him with a pillow. All hail the almighty pillow. As Chucky flails around, he accidentally cuts Andy's arm, effectively driving a wedge between the pair. One day, Shane and Karen are hanging out at the apartment when Shane grabs a beer from the fridge. Chucky appears on the kitchen countertop and plays a soundbite of Andy calling Shane an asshole. Karen finds it funny, but Shane's reaction prompts her to take action. She limits Andy's time with the doll by confiscating it and locking the ugly thing away in a cupboard. The next day, Andy returns from school to find that Chucky has broken out of the cupboard and killed Mickey Rooney, believing the cat was the reason he was locked away. Andy disposes of its remains down the garbage chute and blames Shane for the cat's disappearance, claiming he left the door open. That night, Andy is awoken by Chucky replaying sounds of a cat in distress. Sometime later, Chucky pulls another "Shane's such an asshole" prank, but this time he really gets him, midstream in the bathroom, resulting in a golden shower. This, of course, pisses Shane off, so he decides to confront Andy directly. He barges into Andy's bedroom, throws the doll to the floor, and tells Andy that if he has something to say, he should say it to his face. When Andy tries to leave the room, Shane shoves him down onto the bed, trying to prod him into speaking up, but Andy remains quiet. After Shane leaves, Andy has a mini meltdown, wishing for Shane to be gone. Chucky develops a sinister smirk, his eyes glowing red. Karen tells Shane he was out of line and he ends up leaving. We discover the guy is married with kids. He heads outside with a ladder, planning to take down some Christmas lights, but Chucky causes the ladder to fall, breaking Shane's legs. His daughters, distracted by their devices, we live in a society, don't hear him. While lying on the ground, Shane notices something running through his cornfield. Chucky turns on a tiller, and since Shane is tangled in the Christmas lights, he begins to get pulled toward it. With his free hand, Shane manages to stop the tiller from finishing the job. Just then, Chucky climbs on top of him, warning him it's tickle time. To prevent Chucky from stabbing him, Shane takes his hand off the tiller, which results in a haircut that takes a little too much off the top, donating his hair to a garden gnome. Chucky then proclaims, "This is for Tupac," as he finishes Shane off. The next morning, Andy wakes up to find Shane's face on a watermelon neatly presented with a pretty little bow. Chucky proudly reveals himself with a surprise, and Andy absolutely loses it before locking Chucky away in his closet. Panicked, he calls Fallon and Pug to help him figure out what to do with the watermelon. Instead of calling the cops, they come up with the brilliant plan of wrapping it up like a gift and throwing it down the garbage chute. However, they run into Karen, who questions them about the gift. Thinking quickly, they concoct an elaborate lie involving Doreen, with Andy claiming it's a present for her to thank her for helping him with his homework. Doreen, surprisingly, goes along with the story but almost ruins everything by trying to unwrap the gift right there. Andy quickly asks her to save it until his birthday, and she agrees, thankfully holding off. For now, Andy takes Chucky out of the closet before luring him into a bushwhacking, where Fallon, Pug, and Andy manage to pin the killer doll down to the floor. The trio are able to remove his core, rendering him lifeless. They chuck the Chucky carcass down the garbage chute. Unfortunately, his remains are found by the building's maintenance guy, Gabe, who installs a new core with plans to sell the doll. Meanwhile, Andy takes Mike up on his offer for dinner with him and his mother. It turns out Gabe is a major creep, having hidden cameras all throughout the building. With Chucky now active again, he's able to see inside Doreen's apartment, where at one point she refers to Andy as her new best friend. Mike notices the wrapped-up gift and inquires about it, with Doreen explaining it was from Andy. As Mike clears the table, Andy takes the opportunity to grab the gift and dispose of it down the garbage chute. We see Gabe replaces Chucky's core, bringing the doll's ability to connect to other devices back online. Gabe becomes distracted by one of his monitors, which shows Karen in her bathroom. As Gabe focuses on this, Chucky rises with glowing red eyes, and all the electronics in the room start malfunctioning. Chucky manages to get Gabe into quite the predicament before raising the temperature of the pipe he's holding onto, causing him to fall onto the buzzsaw beneath him. Andy discovers that another kid from his building, Omar, has a Buddi doll that was left outside of his apartment, which he decided to name Chode. That same day, Mike learns of Gabe's remains. Later, at Zed Mart, Chode reveals to Andy that he is Chucky, which prompts Andy to attack the ugly doll. Omar doesn't appreciate this and makes fun of Andy's hearing, which leads to Andy throwing a cheeky punch, resulting in a heated scuffle. In the chaos, Andy accidentally pushes Pug into a shelf when he tries to break up the fight, causing a rift between the friends. After the scuffle, Andy finds Omar's phone. That night, Andy connects to the doll using the app and, through its camera feed, sees it watching Doreen as she waits for a self-driving Caslin car. Meanwhile, Karen finds Mickey's bloodied collar. Andy chases after the car but is too late to warn Doreen. She arrives at her destination, but Chucky takes control of the vehicle, taunting her through the car's speakers by saying, "Andy's my best friend." Doreen calls the doll a hobbit motherfucker, which Chucky doesn't appreciate. He disables the car's airbags and drives her into an innocent minivan, ominously commenting, "Heads up, bitch!" Doreen survives the crash, but Chucky pops up behind her to finish the job. Andy explains to Karen that he believes Chucky is dangerous, but she expresses doubt, dismissing it as nothing more than a toy. She then asks what happened to the cat, and Andy tells her that Chucky was responsible. He offers to show her proof using Omar's phone. Karen questions why he even has Omar's phone before confiscating it, intending to return it. Meanwhile, we see Mike at the scene of his mother's crime. That night, Karen takes Andy with her to work, where many customers are waiting for the launch of the Buddi 2. Back at the apartment, after seeing the police at Doreen's place, Fallon asks Pug what if Chucky is responsible. The two meet up with some other kids and discover proof on Omar's phone, realizing Andy is now in trouble. They head towards Zed Mart to help. Meanwhile, Mike is handed a photograph of the Shane watermelon and recognizes the wrapping paper. At Zed Mart, the launch of the Buddi 2 is quickly approaching, and we see Karen's boss dressed up as a giant doll. Andy's friends arrive, explaining they need to get him out of there because they know Chucky is back. However, Andy insists on getting his mom out first. As they run toward her, Mike intercepts them and tackles Andy, thinking he's responsible for the murders. Karen sees this and intervenes. Meanwhile, customers flood the store as the new dolls become available for purchase. Chucky then stabs Karen's boss just before he wanders out dressed as the giant doll, and as he removes the big ugly head, blood sprays onto a little girl in the crowd. Mike, seeing the commotion, cuffs Andy to a trolley and rushes to assist. Suddenly, the store's lights go out as Chucky takes control of all the electronics, including some drones, which he tries to fly into Mike. Karen tackles Mike to the floor, saving his life, but the drone ends up hitting her boss instead. Chaos erupts as customers scream and run in panic, but Chucky triggers a lockdown, trapping many inside the store. Chucky connects to Andy's hearing aid, taunting him by saying that he's everywhere. Mike saves Pug from a drone, sustaining serious injuries in the process, and tells the boy to run before collapsing to the floor. Meanwhile, other Buddi dolls begin coming to life. Fallon steps in, saving Andy from a Buddi bear and freeing him from his cuffs. As the kids make their way to an exit held open by a shopping trolley, Chucky reveals that he has Karen. Unable to leave, Andy kicks the trolley, closing the shutter door to save his mom and ensure his friend's safety. Determined, Andy arms himself and begins searching for the ugly MF. He eventually finds his mom, whom Chucky is attempting to hang using a forklift. The doll tries to manipulate Andy, saying that Karen only keeps them apart and that he doesn't need her. Chucky then manages to knock Andy out. Chucky believes him to be broken and promises to fix him. Just as the doll raises the knife, Andy begins singing the Buddi song, stalling Chucky long enough enough for him to free himself. While Andy tries to cut his mother down, Chucky leaps onto him, and they both fall onto the rope, keeping Karen suspended. Andy manages to grab the knife Chucky was holding and uses it to finish cutting the rope. They all fall to the ground. Andy quickly recovers, grabs the knife, and plunges it into Chucky's core, shutting the doll off as it says Andy's name and sings the Buddi song. As Andy starts to walk away, Chucky suddenly flies through the air, but before he can attack, he gets shot by Mike, who has survived his injuries. Karen, now free from her binds, rips the doll's head off. Mother and son embrace as Chucky's red eyes finally dim. The kids then gather the doll's remains, destroying them with bats and sledgehammers before burning whatever's left in a barrel. Henry Caslin denies any responsibility on behalf of the company for what happened, but as a precaution, he announces a recall on all Buddi 2 dolls. We see the eyes flash red on one of the dolls placed into storage. And that's Child's Play 2019. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to tickle the like button and be sure to subscribe to become a homie. A recap on Disturbia should be out soon. Today's word of the day is gubbins, which is an object that has little or no value. However, it can also refer to a gadget or device. Personally, I think that describes a Buddi doll perfectly. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, bye-bye.